A strange and tragic twist of fate is leading me to a place I wish I didn't have to go. I can't even tell you how unusual and how odd this is for me. Nothing I've ever done is like the interview we're about to do today. But an old childhood buddy is anxiously waiting for me. He was one of my best friends growing up, middle school, high school. Now he needs me to be there for him, to hear his story for the first time. John has now been locked up behind bars for a decade in what his attorney and a prominent legal expert condemn as one of the worst miscarriages of justice they've ever witnessed.
I've seen a lot of bad cases, but I've never seen anything like this.
I have absolutely no doubt that John Giuca received an unfair, terribly unfair trial.
Witnesses testifying falsely, a falsified document somehow floating and landing on the defense table, a prosecution deliberately offering a multitude of theories, each which is inconsistent with the last.
Now, as well as being reunited with John himself, I'm also about to meet up with a lot of childhood friends from my old hood as I investigate just what really happened. I'm a crime reporter, and John is serving time behind bars for murder. I mean, how did we end up here? As I enter the town of Dannemora in upstate New York, home to the Clinton Correctional Facility, I'm getting very close to finding that out. We're here and he trusted me to help him tell his story to the world. The moment of truth has arrived.
How you doing, Jim? How's it going?
All right, man.
How's everything?
Good to see you.
You too, you too. How you been?
Been good. I wish we were seeing each other under different circumstances, of course.
Yeah,
but
me too. I was just gonna say the same thing.
And as the camera crew sets up, I chat with my childhood friend, John Giuca, now known as the Grid Kid Killer, about all the old times and play catch-up.
I think I told you over the phone, got married.
Yeah, congratulations.
Coming up on the 3-year anniversary.
Wow.
Then we get down to just what landed him in this joint.
I'm in prison because I had a party, really. There's so many nights I go back and I think, if I just wouldn't have had a party that night, I wouldn't be here.
There were about 15 guests at that party at John's Brooklyn home while his parents were out of town. Most of them were a close group of neighborhood friends who called themselves the Ghetto Mafia. But one of them was a stranger, Mark Fisher, who accompanied a college classmate named Angel DiPietro. And several hours after the party ended, Fisher, a strapping football star, was found lying dead in a driveway 3 blocks away at 6:40 a.m. with 5 bullets sprayed into his face and chest.
Did you murder Mark Fisher?
No, I had nothing to do with this crime. I did not murder Mark Fisher. I had nothing to do. All I did was have a party. All I did was have a party that night, and now I'm in prison for 25 to life for something I didn't do.
John claims he was at home asleep at the time of the murder, and that the last he saw Fisher was when he gave him a blanket and let him sleep on a couch.
I had nothing to do with his death. So, when that day comes, I'll be able to prove that.
The prosecution painted you as a leader in this violent gang.
Right.
The assistant district attorney called you a self-styled mafioso, and Tony Soprano wannabe.
Right.
What was Ghetto Mafia?
Ghetto Mafia was not what the prosecutors portrayed it to be. I mean, you know that, You were around these kids and, we were a bunch of kids hanging out. We were young kids, and between having different names for each other or just the neighbors having different names for us, we were called 100 different things throughout our childhood. The prosecutors took one of those names and made it into something that it wasn't. They totally blew this Ghetto Mafia stuff out of proportion and embellished and to beef up their case.
That's not all they did.
4 people testified against me, 3 of them recanted their statements and now admit that they lied and were coerced and threatened into lying. And the other person is thoroughly discredited.
Among them was John's girlfriend, Lauren Calciano, who testified Juca said Antonio Russo planned to rob Mark Fisher and asked Juca for a gun.
What was that like during the trial to have your high school sweetheart, I mean, she's my good friend too,
Yeah.
someone you trusted and cared for? I mean, what was it like to have her testify against you?
It was devastating, you know, and especially me knowing that she wasn't telling the truth. It was just like, you know, how can you do this to me and why would you do this to me? You know, I come to find out years later the amount of pressure that was put on her in order to make her get up there on the stand and say things that weren't true. And, you know, I'm glad that she had the courage to finally come forward and tell the truth.
Another recanter was career criminal John Avito, who testified as the prosecution's star witness to avoid being sent back to prison on a drug violation. He said he heard John confess when they were in jail together to ordering Fisher's murder.
He says the reason why he recanted was because he was racked with guilt for being instrumental in putting you behind bars. I want you to comment on that.
I said to myself, wow, there is a God. And, you know, I'm just so happy that they had the courage to do this, you know?
The only witness not to recant was Albert Cleary, who testified John told him he had given Antonio Russo a gun and ordered him to kill Fisher for disrespecting him by sitting on a glass table at the party.
Does Albert know more than he's letting on?
I think so. Yeah. Otherwise, why would he lie about me?
It is a lie, according to Tommy Soleil, an old friend John and I both grew up with. In fact, Tommy says it was him, not John, who told Fisher to get off the table.
And I even told detectives, like, John didn't even say nothing to him about the table. You know, I can't even remember if he even was there when I said it. You know, but I'm the one who said to him, just, you know, pull up a chair, don't sit on the table. That's all.
And so it was without incident.
Like, 0 incident. He said, okay.
And John says he can't even remember the glass table incident.
You wanted someone dead because some kid sat on a table?
It's sick and twisted, I know. And the prosecutor had 4 different theories, contradictory theories about what took place that night. And, you know, they were just trying to do whatever it takes to get a conviction.
But the plot thickens. Cleary had left the party with Angel DiPietro, who brought Fisher. Angel and Cleary say they went to Cleary's house to sleep. And Cleary's house was just 50 feet from where Fisher's bullet-riddled body had been dumped, covered with the same blanket John had given him. But Albert Cleary and his family told police they heard nothing, even though they were less than 17 yards away.
Not only did he change his story 3 or 4 times, but he got caught in numerous lies, and the body was found 50 feet away from his house. So, I mean, initially he's a suspect, turned into the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. I mean, how does that happen, right? You know?
Despite that suspicion, a lack of any forensic evidence linking John to the crime, no murder weapon found, and the recanting of principal witness testimony, John has so far had 11 appeals for a new trial denied. But he still has someone very special in his corner.
And I said, I'm going to be here for him, and I'm going to fight, and I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be his voice.
My childhood buddy John Juca has been looking out at the world through prison bars for more than 10 years now, hoping somebody out there can help him prove he's not the grid kid killer of college football star Mark Fisher.
You're behind bars for murder.
Right.
How did we get here?
I ask myself that every day. Every day when I wake up and look at the bars, I still can't believe that, you know, it's so hard to be an innocent man in prison. It's, you know, it's hell. It's a nightmare. Every day is a nightmare.
But nobody's worked harder to prove John's innocence and get him out of there than his mom, Doreen.
She's been my rock, you know? She's been there for me and helping me try to prove my innocence since day one. She's what keeps me going.
How are you?
And the woman who was like a second mom to me when John and I were growing up in Brooklyn, did something like you only see in movies.
I had to act. I had to act. I had to become an actress.
Doreen actually transformed herself into a femme fatale.
Yeah, she wore things like this. This certainly isn't.
That is low cut.
Yeah, and this is not Doreen.
Then she went undercover to bust an allegedly crooked juror who had been instrumental in sending John to prison.
What did you learn through the surveillance?
I learned his habits, his likes, his dislikes, of course, where he lived.
And then came the sting.
I befriended him. One October evening, his friend whistled at me, and I pulled over and I befriended him.
For the next 3 months, posing as Dee Madison from California, and with the tape recorder hidden in her low-cut blouses, Doreen and the juror, Jason Allo, were inseparable.
So he started opening up to his new friend from California.
What did Jason Allo eventually confess to you?
Jason Allo admitted to me that he hated my son for being a Jew.
But John's not even Jewish.
No, he's not Jewish, but he believed him to be Jewish. He believed him to be Jewish, and he stated over and over again how he hated Jewish people and how his boss wanted to see that kid fry.
What else did Allo confess to?
Jason Allo confessed that he knew John's friends, and he withheld this from the prosecutors, from the judge, and the defense.
So this guy should have never been a juror on your son's case.
And he was aware of it. He told me I should not even have been on that jury.
Doreen still gets furious when she remembers how she had to stop herself from stabbing him.
That time, Jason's very emotional for me. I'm sorry. It's really bad. Because he's telling me how much he hated Jews, and I was cutting up vegetables to prepare a meal for the man I hated and I wanted to stab. And he's telling me how he put this kid away because he's Jewish, and he's not even Jewish. And I had to turn my back completely on him just not to punch him dead in the face.
This is an awkward question for me to ask because it's you. Literally like a second mom while I was here. But did you ever sleep with Allo?
I didn't. But would I have? You know, Jason, I don't know what I would have done at that time, but if I had to, yeah, I would have. I would have. That should have been the question. What will you do for your son? Yeah, I would have. For the truth? Yes.
You have these audio files. What do you do with them?
I turned them over to John's lawyer, and then he turned them over to the judge.
When you heard what your mom did, what was your reaction like? What she did was, remarkable.
Yeah, what she did was amazing. I was really, I'll be honest with you, I cried, and I was so happy that to have her in my life.
Then, shattering news. The judge refused to accept the tapes as evidence.
I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe that a judge wasn't following the law. He just rendered the verdict without reviewing the evidence, without holding a hearing, without putting me up on the stand, without putting the juror up on the stand.
But now, finally, a breakthrough for Doreen and John. He's won a hearing on getting a new trial.
The hearing is about whether the Brooklyn DA's office violated John Juka's due process rights as it relates to a jailhouse informant.
That's John Avito, who avoided a mandatory prison sentence for a drug violation in return for his testimony, which he later recanted out of guilt. The Brooklyn District Attorney's Office declined our request for interviews with the prosecutor in John Juka's trial, but a spokesman sent us a statement reading, "We consented to the hearing. We are standing by the conviction, and we are confident that after a fair and thorough proceeding, it will be upheld." John and Mom Doreen are counting on a different outcome.
I'm hoping that John has the opportunity to prove his innocence to the judge and the Fisher family.
I feel terrible for the Fisher family. I know what it's like to lose a loved one, and but they need to know that I'm not responsible for this. They need to know that.
Maybe now my old childhood friend will get his chance to prove it.